There we go. Okay. Right, okay, so in today's webinar, we've got Rebecca Stewart on, who's going to be talking about womb healing and honouring your cycle and how you can tune into your body to make your cycles work a little bit better for you. So I'm just going to let Beth introduce herself. So thanks for coming on, Beth, and taking some time out your day today to do this for us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so hi, I am Rebecca, and I am by trade a yoga teacher, but over the past couple of years, I've gotten a little bit more into womb healing. But I do, I integrate yoga. It's womb yoga that I do, but we bring in other parts of like cycle tracking and certain meditations and stuff to help with the cycle and yoga nidras and stuff like that.
Amazing. So how did you get into the womb healing, Beth? What come up for you to sort of go on this sort of journey?
So it was through my own journey, really. Me and Amy were just having a little discussion before we started recording about this. So I, like what I was just saying to you, then I was always like an all or nothing kind of person. So I got into yoga probably about 10 years ago that I first went to a yoga class, but I started teaching about 6 years ago. And when I sort of found yoga and found all, healing and spirituality and stuff like that, I really started to heal loads and loads of things. Like I suffered for years with like acne and body dysmorphia. I had, an eating disorder, or disordered eating, I always call it. I don't know why swapping them words over makes it something different. Super low self-esteem. And over the years, I found loads of different practices that sort of helped me to heal all of those things. So I became very aware of the ability to heal yourself, basically, especially through holistic practices. And then probably about 3 years ago, I got to a point where I was like, I've healed sort of all these things, or I'm ongoing healing, but I still had like a really bad relationship with my cycle. So I used to have really, really heavy bleeds, like super, super heavy bleeds. Loads and loads of clots, very painful. I would usually vomit on the first day. I'd be super tired. And also at times I wouldn't bleed for like several months at a time. There'd be like loads and loads of months where I wouldn't bleed. And it was just erratic. I just didn't really have a relationship with it. So obviously, being that I'd already, established this healing process with other things, I started to look a little bit more into the menstrual cycle, and just discovered like this whole new world. So basically what I started with there, sorry, with saying I was always all or nothing. I used to practice yoga like 6 days a week, 2 hours in the morning. Sometimes again, I'd do like another hour or 2 hours in the afternoon. I'd be teaching all day long, just consistently always exerting my energy. And I basically just hit a point of burnout, like completely. Like I said, lost my cycle, and actually hit like a little bit of a point of, depression. Everything, all of the things that I sort of thought I'd healed over the years kind of, when you're working on healing something and then it comes to you in like a very concentrated form. Does that make sense? So it seems even worse than what it actually is. And it's like everything got brought up. And I just discovered this book called Wild Power, which talks about tracking your cycle and the inner seasons, and just started to notice basically how the world that we live in is very masculine run and very run on male energy, and a lot of the ways that we're taught to live, especially for me in the yoga world, I'm sure it very much happens in the fitness world as well. Usually at the top of anything that is being created, or who's in charge, it's been a man who's created that system. And so it doesn't really take into account a female body. So we're all going in and we're following these systems, and that's what I was doing. I was following these yoga systems that have been designed for a male body and not taking into consideration my cycle. And in the end, it was not just yoga, but the other ways that I was living my life, the ways that I was choosing to eat or restrict me eating, the ways that, I wasn't resting, the ways that the menstrual cycle products that I was using. So yeah, it just opened me up to this whole new world of female empowerment, basically, and getting in touch with the feminine aspects of life and living life through that, rather than trying to follow a template that wasn't suited to my body. Said a lot there, didn't I? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, there's so many things you've touched on there though that I think a lot of like women can relate to. Like, and I think we can all be guilty of certain things. Like, I know I lost my cycle through like you just exerting myself, not taking care of myself, not eating enough. And your body is that sort of that your body's that amazing that it knows when you don't have that energy available. So it literally shuts off your reproductive system until like you actually start putting the energy back in again. Like, and it's actually scary the way it does that. Um, it's mad, and so many women actually do suffer from that. And I'm sure it's called hypothalamic amenorrhea. I think that's the actual
Yeah,
term for
so
it. And it took me ages to get mine back. And yeah, I've started really looking into like cycles now, and I'm reading the period repair manual by a naturopathic doctor from America, and it's really good. So yeah, that book, The Wild Power, then is that what it's called, isn't it? So what are the different seasons? How does it all work?
Wild Power, basically, because obviously you've just said a book there, and I always tell people, take what resonates with you. There's loads of different books and stuff like that. Wild Power is takes quite a spiritual insight into it, but it's an unbelievable book. It was the one for me that shifted everything. So in that book they talk about so on an average cycle, basically. Now, if anybody's watching this and you think my cycle's not that long at all, don't freak out. This is an average cycle. An average cycle is 28 days. So within that cycle, you've obviously got 4 weeks, 4 sets of 7 days, and our hormones literally change throughout those 7 days, literally on a physical point. There's times when your estrogen levels are higher, there's times when your testosterone levels are higher, there's times when basically all of your hormones are quite low, which is usually like when you're bleeding. So the way that the women who wrote this book have set it out, and they got in tune with their own cycles, and they started to notice a correlation between each of these weeks and the seasons of the year. So week 1, so day 1 of your cycle is basically the day that you start bleeding. So week 1 is your inner winter. So obviously when we think about winter, when we think about right now, we were just talking about it before, when you want to get cozy, you want to rest, you don't feel as much like you want to be doing things with people. It's really a time to be introverted and go within. Then as you come out of your inner winter, you're coming into your second week, so your pre-ovulatory week, which is your inner spring. So when you think about spring, we all know that feeling when the blossom starts coming on the trees, you start to wake up a little bit more, you want to start doing more things. Then you come into your ovulation time, and then a couple of days either side of that, because you only actually ovulate for 1 day. And actually in a summer, we all know how we feel in summer, super energized, you want to be out, you want to be socializing. Usually when people start getting, a little bit more into their fitness regimes, doing a little bit more. And then you come into your inner autumn, which is the week that most women struggle with the most, which is your premenstrual week. And that's obviously, as we think about autumn and stuff like that, the leaves are falling, it's a time for letting go. Again, a time when you start to think about going inward and being with yourself. So the more basically, this has just become like a very natural language for me now, and some of the girls who I work with and stuff, when we communicate with each other, and you say, I'm in my inner winter at the moment, or I'm coming into my autumn. And the more and more you track the cycle, it blew my mind. Like, it seems so simple, but like when I was tracking it, and suddenly like I was reading this book, and I mean, we've all done it, we've all gone through our life, and the majority of women that I know don't know when their period's coming. And there's that joke, isn't there, when people say like, I thought I was crazy and crying for no reason, and then I got my period. And the book and this like way of tracking just helps you to get in tune with that. So instead of everything being a surprise, and your premenstrual week, you're thinking, why am I suddenly annoyed by everyone, or why do I feel like this, or why are my energy levels low, why can't I lift as much weight as I could last week, why am I crying so much, or in that other week, why do I feel so good this week, why do I not feel as bloated? You know where you are in your cycle, so you understand why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, and from there you can live your life differently, instead of having this one set way, which most of us have. Should feel like this all of the time, and it's usually the summer energy for most people, like the ovulation energy, because that's the more respected energy in the society that we live in. So super energized, super sociable, feeling really good about yourself, able to lift more weight, able to do more yoga, not really usually as hungry when you're in that time. So usually it's that energy for most women, obviously I can't generalize, but that we want to bring through the whole of the month. And because that doesn't work, you end up in like this cycle of, so say you've had that week where you've socialized with loads of people, you've trained 5 times that week, you've been for a run, and then you get to your autumn week, your premenstrual week, and suddenly, oh, I don't want to go to the gym as many times this week, or people are asking to see me, but I don't want to. Because we hold on to this idea of should, we start to do those things anyway, instead of listening to our body. And then we're literally, what's that thing where, you know, driving on an empty tank, and you're reducing and reducing the energy that you've got in the body, instead of honouring and listening to the body, and it just ends up keep continuously unfolding and leaving you with problems like what you and I have both had. Maybe the body suddenly says, you know, well, you can't possibly reproduce because of the way you're treating it, you know, or you get heavy period pains and stuff like that. Obviously there's 1,000 million reasons why you might be having period pains, and I would always say to people to look on all different levels, so physical, mental, emotional, energetical, and spiritual. You know, it's like a holistic way of looking at the body. There's not just going to be one set thing. It could just be that you're missing a nutrient. But I always think that like period pains and pains in the womb are your body's way of communicating with you to let you know that something's not right. And usually what we do is just take a painkiller and just get on with it and just continue with our day. And it's just this thing of basically, it's like our bodies are screaming at us and asking for things, but we just ignore them. So when you get in tune with the seasons and this way of following our cyclical nature, you just get more in tune with your body and live life in a way that honours your body and not in a way that hates your body, basically.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And again, I think like I'm very guilty of that. Like rather than, I'm getting a little bit better now with listening to my body and stuff, but like say for example you need to go to the gym and you've got 4 sessions planned this week and you need to do your steps and stuff, but then you're physically and mentally tired and it's like it's getting, like you said, just emptying the tank completely to go and do that session or go and do your steps, like rather than going and forcing yourself to do something which will actually be counterproductive. You should just literally just rest, just listen to your body and honor it. And would you say that doing things like that, like honoring your body and listening to it, has helped your cycles with like the heavy bleeding and stuff like that?
1,000,000%. My cycle now is super light, not super light actually. I bleed for about 4 days. It's not super duper light because some people I know don't get any blood at all. I still get an amount. I don't get any clots at all. Which at the time when I used to get the clots and I started reading about it, I didn't know it was, I don't want to say it's a bad thing because it's not a bad thing, but I didn't know it was problematic. I thought everybody just got these really heavy clots, but actually it was, there's a book that I read once and she talks about normal and common. So it's not normal, it is common. So it's not normal to get that your body, you know, it's a sign from your body that something's off. But yeah, I bleed. To be honest, the process is probably 7 days really, but I bleed heavily for about 4 days. I don't throw up anymore. I get a little bit of pain when I first, you know, like release, but I just rest. And honestly, I just rest for about like 2-3 hours or whatever, like full rest, you know what I mean? I just lie down completely. If I can't have that time when I first come on, then usually I experience more pain. But if I can just rest and lie down, literally the simple stuff, hot water bottle, I put my legs up the wall, and it's changed my cycle completely. Like I can't believe it, the relationship that I've got with it now. And like I say, I live literally according to, you know, I know when I'm going to be more tired because obviously my primary physical practice is yoga. So in the times when I'm in like my spring and summer, I very naturally gravitate just to doing a lot more. I'll do a longer practice. And then as I move into autumn, for me, it's usually the premenstrual week, and for most girls, I find we're the most tired. And what I would say, like to people like you, and obviously girls who are on the call, because obviously, you know, there's goals that you're working towards and stuff like that, and things that you're doing. Choose to rest, but also you can just adapt it a little bit. So that's what I tell people with the yoga practice. You can just, instead of doing like, you know, an hour of like a really intense practice, Like maybe if like you were saying you need to get your steps in, I don't know, just go for a slightly smaller walk. Because what I find, like what we were just saying, I don't know whether you'd agree with me on this, I think you probably would. So if you're low on energy, because I was thinking about this before, thinking about making it suitable for the audience, and I was thinking about my body and my weight and stuff like that. Now my weight's very consistent now, and it used to fluctuate a lot. Obviously I'm healthy, my diet's consistent, and I do regularly exercise as well, but my weight used to fluctuate all of the time. And now it's just very consistent, and I eat very intuitively, which I think is something that you do when you're not dieting as well. So when you get, for example, into like your autumn week, your body's telling you, I'm tired. Because I know this was a question that came up as well about cravings and stuff like that. So your body's telling you, I'm tired. You think, oh no, but I've got to go and do X, Y, and Z. So you ignore the fact that you're tired. You probably take something that's going to give you a little bit more energy, like a caffeine drink or something like that, maybe something sugary. You go, you exert further energy. Eventually, what is going to happen is your body is going to start to crave things like sugar or things that are going to give you energy, carbohydrates, high sugar things. So there's two ways of looking at it really, if you know what I mean, because you could think I'm trying to achieve a certain weight goal and I'm trying to achieve this, so I'm going to go to the gym. But actually if you rest, the likelihood of you getting those really intense cravings is going to be a little bit lower. You still will crave things that week, you definitely still do just get cravings, and I would always encourage people to eat a little bit more in that week. But yeah, there's two sides of that. I can't even remember what the original question was there. I've just gone off on its complete tangent, haven't I?
We were talking that's perfect. We were talking about the week before you get your cycle, and I do agree with you on it. I do think that it is counterproductive a lot of the time if like if you are physically tired and like you're thinking to yourself, I haven't got this in me to go to the gym, I haven't got this in me to go and get your steps in. You are best just resting. So if you go when your energy levels are that low, it is going to have another impact on somewhere else, and most of the time it will be your energy, your sort of appetite or your energy levels, which will then leave you feeling exhausted, and then that'll carry on then for another 3 days. So rather than thinking, do you know what, I need to do this gym session today, and just always think about your long-term results. Don't be thinking about your results like in the space of a week, because nothing's going to happen massively in the space of a week. If your body is telling you, I need to rest, like listen to it and rest. And as well, when we are coming on, I'm sure estrogen and progesterone both peak the week before, I'm sure that's right, the week before you get your cycle, which means that our basal like metabolic temperature or whatever it's called, like how warm we actually get, actually increases the week before, so we can naturally burn more calories that week. So I always allow my clients to have an extra like 200 calories a day on the sort of that week, which will, because it takes a lot of energy for your body to actually like release the egg and actually come on and stuff like that. So that's why you get tired. So like you said, but it is normal to have them feelings, knowing like you are going to be tired, you are going to be craving, but it's because your body's using the energy for one to have the cycle, and then two, you're going to have the cravings because you've dropped calories through having the cycle. And then if you're exerting yourself on top of that, I agree, it's going to be like counterproductive. So I love that, just like literally honoring what your body's telling you. And I'm not sure how many of my clients are like quite like in tune with the bodies, or whether they've ever looked into any like holistic practices. Like I'm really spiritual and I've been on this little journey for a few years now, so I feel like I am getting more in tune. But what would you say to the people who are just sort of starting out on listening to the bodies and getting in tune with the bodies? What are some tips that you'd recommend? What
I've written down, the first go-to that I would say is just start tracking your cycle. So even if, I know a lot of girls are obviously on the pill, even if you're on the pill, you can use the day where you break, you can use that for your day one of your bleed. Obviously it's different, it's not an actual bleed, or you can follow the cycle of the moon. So day one could either be the full moon or the new moon. and what you would track. I've got a conscious menstruation ebook on my Instagram that you can just download for free. So if you just go on the link in my bio, and it's just a dead simplified version, so that's good. But so I always say to people, just ask, how's my body feeling? How am I feeling? There's usually a correlation between the two. And then just writing down what I said before. So how are you feeling physically? How are you feeling mentally? How are you feeling emotionally, energetically, spiritually? Any cravings that are coming up. So literally just a couple of sentences every single day. So you'll write like day one, today I'm feeling physically tired. Noticed I had a craving for chocolate. Didn't like my boyfriend today, like these things. So the idea is that, and I would encourage anybody to do it for about 3 months consecutively, because what you'll start to notice is over the 3 months, you'll be like, I always feel like this on day 17. So there's an example in the book Wild Power of this woman who used to break up with her partner. Every relationship she's ever broken up from, she always broke up with them on day 26 of her cycle, which is obviously like right in the depths of like that menstrual week. So what she does now on that day, she spends time away from her partner, and her partner takes the kids, and that's a day that she has to herself, because she knows that that's a day when she can't be around people and when this thingy. So that's it basically. So just track, your energy levels and stuff like that. And what it helps you to do, I always say, you learn the language of your own body. Now, some people might have a completely different experience. They might think, do you know what, in my premenstrual week, I'm super energized. So it's no good me sitting and telling you, do this at this time, do this at this time, do this at this time, because it can be completely different for everybody. So yeah, just tracking your own cycle, that's the main thing, because what it helps us to do is just build a relationship with the body and all the little things. You might think, on day 10 I always get a little bit of cramping, or do you know what I mean? And you just go through, and what it helps you to do, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but you might start to notice loads and loads of symptoms. Some girls might get pain all throughout the month, so it might be something that they need to go and speak to a professional about. So yeah, I just call it learning the language of your own body, basically, and you know how you're going to feel on those particular days, and then therefore you can just adapt your life a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that. And it is literally just about like taking the time out, isn't it? And just like being aware of like what's coming up for you in sort of different stages of your cycle and different times of your cycle. Because like I remember it's only been this year, to be honest, because I didn't have a period for like 5 years, and then I got it back. I know I got it back last year though. I read a book by Dr. Rinaldi. Her name was, I can't remember the name of it now. I have to find it. But I followed what she said, and I was basically I weren't sleeping enough, which is a stress on the body. Then I weren't eating enough carbs, and I was in a deficit, that's a stress on the body. Then I was working like 16 hours a day in the gym, that's a massive stress on the body. Then I was training every day, and so it was just stress on top of stress to me, and I felt fine. And then I went and got my cortisol levels tested, and they sat me down and they went, how'd you feel? I was like, I feel fine. They were like your cortisol levels like dangerously high, like I'm surprised you're not sick, like. And then that was when I was like, no, I really need to start like some self-care now. And it took me, I started it in the March, and then I got it back in the August, and it was consistent up until March this year. And you know what? It's funny enough, a lot of women who I've spoke to have said the cycle since lockdown has been completely different, which is weird. But the week before I was getting my period, I was literally in bed, exhausted, like to the point where was thinking I can't even get up and brush my teeth. Like that's how exhausted I was. I was dead down. I just felt like I had this heavy dark cloud on me, and I've never felt like that. And I went to the doctors, and I remember crying now, and he was just giving me antidepressants, and I never took them. But that's happened for the last 3 cycles now. So I'm aware of it now, but my cycles are like 4 to 6 weeks long. But at that time, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I felt like that. I thought I was going insane. It is, it's crazy what the hormones can do.
Yeah, I would actually say that most people on this earth, especially in the Western society, are stressed. Are
Mm.
stressed, and I did the exact same as you. Like, and people always say to you, "Don't feel like you're doing too much, you're this, you're that." And I used to think the same. I feel fine. I know I can do it. Blah blah blah, blah getting through.
Yeah.
And eventually, your body is going to shut down and show you in some way something will happen. So that's another thing. The main thing I was encouraging. I know you always encourage this. Sleep. Like,
Yeah.
I did not realise, I honestly didn't realise how important sleep was for me weight regulation, for me energy levels, for me skin, for me period. People used to tell me all the time, and now it's so important to me. It used to be something I would cut back on to prioritise other stuff, but like now, that's my main focus. Do you know what I mean? Like even if I have like a set time that I get up in the morning, if I end up going to bed later, I just get up a little bit later, because the impact that it has on me, even just one day now, if I don't sleep, it's awful.
It is, and yeah, I think like I get all my clients to track their sleep, and in the beginning they're like, "Why do you want to know about how I'm sleeping?" And I'm like, because it won't directly impact your fat loss, but it will directly impact other things that will impact your fat loss, like energy, your appetite, your mood, water retention, recovery, it affects everything. Yeah, sleep is so
I was
important.
saying that to you before, wasn't I? But like I used to be like swollen all the time, and that's
Yeah,
obviously something
coffee.
you experience a lot. And I think for me personally, sleeping enough has taken that away.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. I do feel like it's pure glamorized, like overworking and like team no days off, and I'll like this quote is mental, and I see people sharing it all the time. I'll sleep when I'm dead, and I'm like, what are you even going on about? Like,
Yeah.
it's so important. You should never ever like, even like if you stay, even if I stay up, want like people shame me for going to bed at like 10 o'clock. They're like, are you messing going to bed at 10 o'clock, you little nan? And I'm like, no, I need my sleep. Like, I need my sleep. But no, if I go to bed and if I don't sleep enough, I feel hungover the next day.
I do the same. I,
Can't
I,
be good.
like I'm harder on myself, and and that shows you again. It's that like we have like cycles within cycles. It's like that same way that you're feeling like your autumn, because I think that you need to sleep more at that time as well, and it's just, yeah, I think the world that we live in, basically like what you've just said, and it's like what I was saying before, like it's been male run, and I don't mean that as any insult to like men, but like this thing of no days off. Men's energy levels are just different to ours. They're not as cyclical. Men go through like a daily hormone thing, I think. I think there is some studies into whether men go through it like on a monthly basis, but yeah, like no days off. Do you know what I mean? But I used to be like that. You think,
Same.
don't matter, don't need to take a rest day. Why would I? And we do, and rest has not been glorified in the way that it should, and rest is equally as productive as not resting. And like you said, this year, has just been, I think it's give everyone a big insight about just going inwards and resting. I meant to say before, there was a post I saved the other day that somebody mentioned about people's cycles during lockdown and this year and stuff like that. And obviously a big part of it has been like the stress and the worry and stuff like that for people, and the change in and obviously all of the collective energy that is happening right now. We're going through like a very big shift and change, so that's definitely all impacting people's cycles. So that's quite normal, I think, for that to have happened for people this year. Yeah.
When you do start looking into it though, and start delving into like just sitting with yourself and becoming more aware and more in tune, it is amazing how in sync we all are with like the universe and stuff. And you mentioned before about like the moon cycles. There's a book called Lunar Living. Have you read that one? So in that book, it talks about the phases of the moon, and people who are really in tune with the body and the cycles, with the cycle, they will sort of like get in sync with the moon cycles as well.
I
And you,
was
most
this
people,
year I've led with the full moon
yeah.
until a month ago.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, this book, that, and it also tells you how you can do that. And it speaks about, and I thought, I always remember this is one of the first chapters. It said, because our bodies are made up of 70% water, when it's coming up to the full moon, there's a gravitational pull, and that's why the tides start like like going back, and we feel that pull because we're 7% water now, we're in tune with ourselves and sort of the moon cycles. That's why in that PMS we do feel really withdrawn, and we do just need to just relax and let go. It's so interesting. But yeah, I completely agree with everything you've said today. So it is so important of just taking that time to sit with yourself, listen to what your body's telling you, and actually honouring it rather than just be like noticing going, oh, do you know what? I feel tired today.
Yeah.
Asking yourself questions like, okay, why am why am I tired today? And then you can actually look at your cycle as it's something to do with my cycle. Then you can look back at the month before and be like, do you know what? This happened last month. It's like having a little journal, isn't it?
It is a little thing, and you know, like I always call it what you just said there. I always say to people, call it like the internal checklist, because obviously, you know, when you're like honouring your, I just go by that and do the same thing. I think, where am I in my cycle? You know, what physical exercise have I done today? Have I been busy today? Have I socialised a lot today? And answer them questions, because obviously sometimes the flip side of it, especially when you're on a weight loss journey, you might be starting to use a little bit of like excuses. So finding that like little internal checklist of where am I in my cycle, what physical exercise have I already done, you know, because people don't always take into account the fact that, say, if someone's a teacher, you know, they're on their feet all day, like walking around, and they don't consider that as, oh, I've already exerted a lot of physical energy. I just wanted to say then with the moon, so when I started getting in touch with all of this was about 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago actually. This was when I first, anyway, it doesn't matter when it was, there was a blood moon. Do you remember? There was a blood
Like
moon.
a blood moon.
It was like a big thing. Anyway, I hadn't bled for 3 months, right? But I'd started to get in touch with my cycle, and I'd got me bleed on this blood moon, and it blew my mind. Like,
Mm.
blew my mind. And yet since then, I've pretty much always bled with the full moon, until last month. I came on 5 days earlier. I went to like a ceremony, so I knew that was why. But yeah, I've always bled exactly with the full moon for the whole of the duration of 2020.
Mm.
So when you've got synchronicities going on like that, you know, you can't ignore it, can you?
No, you really can't. And it's not, it, you just don't know until you start looking into it and start tracking things and start being aware of things, and then it makes sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense. And in the book, right, they say that in like years and years and years ago, that women during the full moon, they used to all come together and they used to go to these tents, and they were called
Red
like,
tent.
what's that?
Red tent.
Red tents, yeah. And they'd go and they'd spend like a few days together, and they literally honor the cycle, honor the body, and they just rest.
Mm.
And like, whereas obviously times have changed since then, and but you don't rest at all. We don't honor our body, we don't listen to our cycles. Um but yeah, it's crazy how back then they knew, I feel like they knew so much more. But I think they were a lot more in tune back then.
Definitely.
Um
So much more in tune with nature and with
mm.
the natural cycles. And it's actually, that's what I didn't really go into that, but like the bleeding phase of our cycle is like the you go into such more of like a meditative state, and it's such a deeper time to connect. Like there's certain tribes and stuff like that where they use that time to get insight from women and learn about the dreams and stuff like that. So like it's a very powerful time, you know, from a spiritual perspective as
Yeah.
well. You know, if that's not really your thing, then it's still important to just rest physically. But yeah, I didn't even mention that either. Like I usually, the first 3 days of my bleed now, I just rest completely, pretty much, like physically. I mean, and again, like you were saying, if you think of it as like a long term thing, if I know I'm doing that every month for 3 days, it's not cutting back on any of the other things that I do. It's like, this is always now. These 3 days I rest. There's another 2 weeks where I'm super energized, and I'm doing things. So it doesn't impact anything. It doesn't cause any detriment. It only helps.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people like they feel guilty for having like 3 days off, and
Mm.
like it's your health at the end of the day. Like you should never ever feel guilty for practicing self-care and taking the time for yourself and listening to your body. And like we said earlier, it's gonna be counterproductive, whether it's like physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, it's gonna have an impact somewhere. If you don't take the time to rest. So there's no guilt or like taking days just to fill your cup back up,
Mm.
because it's just not good running on empty. and it's not healthy either. But yeah, I do think that's where a lot of women do struggle, putting so much pressure on themselves that they feel guilty. Did you ever feel like that when you first started doing
I
that?
still do, and it's a big part of the process. It's a big, not in a big way, but I still get this like, okay, like that's enough now, Beth, or okay, oh, and that obviously that little the inner autumn week and the premenstrual week, we say that's a time when your inner critic comes out the most. And like definitely, do you know what I mean? Like I get this thing of like, oh, you're just making this up, and you don't really need to rest, and other people manage to get on with it, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. So it's still there, but it's just learning over and over again that that's just the things we've been told for years, like all of the other numerous lies that we've been told about the way we should be living. And recognizing, again, looking at, well, how does my body function now since I've been doing this? Oh yeah, a lot better. How's my mental health? A lot better. So I know not to listen to that little voice, but yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to rest, which is so sad.
I know.
I read that said one of the most radical things that you can do in this society, like one of the deepest forms of rebellion, is to rest, because we get so encouraged not to.
I know. I don't even know where that's come from. I don't know where this pressure is. Not even pressure, but it is so glamorized, like we said, to just be just like busy and productive all the time. And I was really guilty of it. I haven't been so lockdown was a blessing in disguise for me. I honestly don't know how I done everything pre-lockdown, to be honest.
I'm like that now. I'm like, what did I used to do?
I can't fit anything in a day now, and I was so busy pre-lockdown, but it was a blessing in disguise for me. And yeah, it's just I still struggle now with feeling guilty. I do. And like my boyfriend always says to me, he's like, you never allow yourself to rest. He's like, you're constantly on the go. And even if I was sitting still, I'd be thinking, I should be doing something. I should be. But I'm like, and now that I'm sitting with myself and being more in tune, I know it's just a voice, and it's just a habit that's built up over time, and the only pressure is coming from me. I'm the only person that's putting that pressure on myself. So it's just being aware of that little voice and knowing that I shouldn't be doing anything. There's no rules. If I feel like I need to rest, I need to rest, and that's just how it is. So, but it does take time, and it isn't easy to do, is it?
No, it's an ongoing process. We're retraining ourselves for things that we've been, lied about for years. And I think, it's important for people like you and me and anybody else, the more people get in touch with this work, just telling other women, just explaining it to them. And I can already see it rippling out, in this way. So, for anybody who's watching, if you do start getting in tune with it and noticing it, tell other people, because the more and more that we do, the more we can start to communicate with each other. Like I was saying before, I say to my friends now, I'm in me in a winter. My friends who are following as well, or in me, I'm sorry, I'm not that energized. Or when I hold women's circles and stuff like that, we always ask first, where are you in your cycle? Because then we can gauge how everybody's feeling. Do you know what I mean? If somebody seems a little bit off, it's because they're in an autumn, or someone's super energized. So it's just letting this language become normal for us, so that we can communicate how we're feeling. Instead of, again, the word should is like, I can't think of, my sister told me this once from this language thing she was learning, but like it's like a bad word. Like we shouldn't use it. So I'm using it there. Should be doing that, or should be doing that, or should be doing that. And it's like, we function through our lives on these shoulds instead of what do I need and what do I want.
Yeah, I love that. That is so true. Where does that come from? Like,
The capitalism, isn't it? This need to succeed, to this unachievable success.
it is crazy the amount of unnecessary pressure we put on ourselves because of should. It is mental, and we just create again unnecessary stress for ourselves. It is mad. Do you want to tell people about your womb healing course and the women's circles that you offer, Beth, and what's included and how they all work, and if people want to get involved, how do they go about it?
So most of everything to access me is just usually through my Instagram. I am updating my website at the moment, but you know that's like an ongoing process. But it will be on the website to book soon. I wanted to speak to you actually about your website, but through my Instagram. So I've got one coming up in January. It's going to be every Wednesday evening, 6 till 8. I am going to add another date as well and another time. I'm just gauging it from a few women who can't do 6 till 8, so you can just keep an eye out for that. And basically, we just go a little bit in depth about what we've spoken about here. So each week we talk about each season. And at the beginning, we have like a women's circle for about an hour where we just share, and it's just a space where people can come talk about what's going on for them. Anything really, it's just like an open space to share. We talk about whatever season is coming up that week, the different things to expect. And then we do like a womb yoga practice, which is, you know, just yoga, but it's more feminine type movements, helping you to connect to the womb space. And then I normally do some kinds of like clearing meditation. So we do one where we meet like the inner child. We do one where we do like cord cutting. And then I'll give like a little bit of homework as well afterwards, which is obviously optional, but usually just about like tracking your cycle, a little movement practice. So yeah, that's that. And then I'm just waiting for my current women's circle to end, womb yoga course to end, and I'm going to put a regular women's circle on, I think on a Monday night, which will just be like donation based, where again we can just connect and start to build this community more. And then I've got my website, which is a subscription based website, which again is going through like a little overhaul at the moment. But that's got all different, the way I've set it out is there's all different yoga practices, but according to your cycle. So if you think, oh, I'm in my autumn, what should I do? You go on and you look in the autumn section, and then it's there. Yeah, and that's it, I think, at the moment of what I've got going on.
That's amazing. Yeah, that sounds fab. And I love the way you've got different practices for different seasons. I love that because I suppose like when you're feeling good, you can have a more like energized flow and you've got more energy. And then when you just need to just might want to just move your body, because sometimes you want to move, but you don't have the energy, and just doing a little bit of a nice little flow does just make you feel a lot better, doesn't it? And I love the women's circles as well. I'm a huge fan of like women coming together, and there's so much it's so powerful, like women empowerment and women supporting each other, because I do feel like, I don't know, we were quite disconnected, but then I feel like as the years are going on, I do feel like women are becoming more connected now. So yeah, I'm all about that. So I love that. So you'll have to give me more info on that when they're all up and running, and I can share it with my girls too. Fabulous. Have you got anything else you want to say today, Beth?
No, I think that's all. Obviously, if anyone's got any questions, just message me. But it's just like that thing, you know, I'm no expert. I've just learned a little bit more and studied my own body, and that would be the main thing that I would say to anyone. You know, it's find what resonates with you, and move from there. You know, everything I've said might not resonate at all, so just don't take it. You know, just take what resonates always, and listen to what your soul and your body is telling you, rather than what somebody else is telling you. You should do.
Yeah, I love that. Perfect. Oh, well, thank you so much, Beth. I absolutely love that, and I'm sure all the girls will as well.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, if anybody did.
Right, I'm just going to stop.